Believe house. You need to come out here at Christmas and see this house. It has an Always Believe Hall of Fame and a fountain. One of a kind. Make sure you get out here. Today we're going to continue talking about domain and range and how to write the domain and range with inequalities. You learned about this yesterday. So your domain went from left to right on the x-axis. The range went from bottom to top. If you had an open dot, it was a less than symbol. If you had a closed dot, it was a less than or equal. So we are going to continue on that. And before I talk anymore, let me record this or I will do all of this for nothing. I haven't done this yet today. So now we have a magical whiteboard. And we are going to learn about domain and range. It is going to be F-U-N, fun, fun, fun. Okay, so let's get started. Remember, your domain and range goes from left to right. And the domain goes from left to right and the range goes from top to bottom. So we're going to fill in the blanks right here. All of the possible y values of a function, correct, that is the range. All of the possible input values, the input is your domain, right? That is your domain. All of the possible output, the output is the range. All of the possible x values, that is your domain. Left to right on the graph is the domain. And bottom to top on the graph is the range. So let's go over here and define this. We're going to put dots on the x-axis first. So my dot on the x-axis would start here and go to here. And now this would almost make a pentagon. We'll do that at the end. Okay. So now then, let's find our domain. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to start at the -6 and go all the way to the right to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to the 10. So our domain goes from -6 to 10. They're both closed dots. Put less than or equal signs and we put x in there, right? That's what the domain is. Now then, let's do the range. We're going to go from the bottom of the graph to the top of the graph. So I'm going to do this in another color. The bottom of the graph is right here and the top of the graph is right here in it. Okay, so we're going from the bottom to the top. So the bottom number will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the top number would be 1, 2. And they're both closed dots. This would technically would be a closed dot because it does include that value. So less than or equal symbols and put a y. That's how I'll write the domain and range. And this graph's pretty cool. Trace over this with me. You got a pentagon. To make that pentagon have more power, put a T in it. Pentagon T, the symbol of believe. Let's keep going. Okay, let's talk about all real numbers. At times, any real value can be identified as the domain and range of a function. Let's just put any real value. In this situation, we would say that the domain and range is an infinite set, sometimes written as, I would not know what this is right here, okay? Domain and range is, let's put all real numbers. In this situation, we would say that the domain and range is all real numbers, sometimes written as, let's put R. I think I've seen this for real numbers or real numbers, all real numbers. Okay, not exactly sure the wording on that. What's going to happen on this one is it's going to go from infinity to infinity. Okay, so on this one right here, if you look at this graph, the graph has an arrow on the left and an arrow on the right with it. So one way you could write that is negative infinity to positive infinity, or you could just say all real numbers. Okay, and then for the range, notice that this dot, that line just keeps going down. It would go from the bottom to the top, right? That line would keep going forever up and forever down. So you could write it as negative infinity to positive infinity with a y, and you put equal bars here, sorry about that. And then it would also be all real numbers. Your teacher will tell you the exact wording of that, okay? So I'm sure that's how that is written, okay? Okay, real quickly, let's answer this. What do the arrows on each end of the line suggest? The graph goes to infinity. And remember, you write infinity with those lazy 8s, don't you? You write infinity with the lazy 8s. Now then, remember, we're going to put a dot left and right and a dot bottom to top. If there's an arrow tip, we're going to arrow tip the end of the axes. Oh, and if there's an arrow tip, we're going to have infinity in our answer. So let's go to number 1. Let's go to left to right. The left number would be here. The right number would be here. So the domain would go from 0 to 8. They're both closed dots, so put less than or equal to, and we're going to put x's. So the domain would go from 0 to 8. That's how you write that with inequalities. Now then, let's do the range. The range would start at the bottom at 0 also and go up to the 8 too, would it? So the range would go from 0 to 8. Both of them are less than symbols and a y. Domain has x, range has y. Oh, okay. So on the next one right here, notice that they both have arrow tips, right? So my domain will go from left to right, and let's just put all real numbers. And the range is going to go from the bottom to the top. Both of them have arrow tips, right? So it's also going to be all real numbers. Or you could write it down negative infinity to positive infinity, right? Okay. Usually you just put all real numbers. Let's go to the next one. Ho, 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 ho. So the domain is going to go from left to right, the range from bottom to top. Start on the left at -4, go to the right to +3. And so our domain will start at -4 and go to 3. They both have less than or equal symbols because the dots are closed, and put an X in the middle. Oh, oh, oh. Let's go to the range. Isn't this fun? Start at the bottom. It goes from the 1 up to the 7. So my range, bottom to top, the domain left to right. So the bottom number's 1, the top number's 7. They both have less than or equals, and put a Y. Ho, 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 ho. Now then, number 4 is kind of tricky because there's 2 arrow tips, but the range has limits, doesn't it? Okay, so let's put our arrow tips on this graph. Okay, and it's going to go all the way to the left, all the way to the right. So the domain will be all real numbers. And I'm going to use the number symbol for that, the hashtag. Now then, the range does not go from the bottom to the top, does it? Okay, so my range will start at 1 and go to 7 on it. So the range goes from 1 to 7. I'm going to put less than or equals and put a Y. Oh, piece of cake, piece of cake, piece of cake. Turn the page. These get a little bit tricky here because you got curves. Don't worry about it. You're going to go from left to right, bottom to top. Left to right, bottom to top. So let's go left to right on this graph. Okay, the domain would start all the way on the left to right here, put a closed dot, and then it's going to go to the right all the way to the 16 on it. So the domain is going to go from the -2 to the 16, and we're going to put less than or equal symbols and an X. Oh! Now then, let's find the range. The bottom number on the range is right here. Go across, put a dot. The top number's right here, put a dot. And then we're going to go from -2 to +10, aren't we? Or I'm sorry, +2 to 10. Put less than or equal symbols and put a Y. Ho, 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 ho. Okay, so that's my domain and range. But would this be a function? If you draw a vertical line right through here, it crosses twice, would it? So this is not a function. Because the x's would repeat, wouldn't they? Let's keep going. Oh, oh, oh. Isn't this fun? Okay, after this page, you will have an amazing set of homework. So let's do number 6. Number 6, we're going to go from left to right, aren't we? So the left dot's at the -4. The right dot is open at the 5. So that's going to be an open dot in it. Okay, so the domain starts at -4. It goes to 5. Put an X, or you put it later, and then less than or equal and a less than, right? So it goes from -4 to 5, but does not include 5. Let's find the range. So we're going to go from the bottom to the top. The bottom of the graph is right here at -2, and the top of the graph is at +3 in it. So the range will go from -2 to 3. It's going to have a less than on the -2, less than or equal on the 3, put a y. And then this would be a function because the x's do not repeat. Okay, a vertical line only crosses the graph once. Let's do number 7. On number 7, there's arrow tips, right? And the line will go forever left to right and down to bottom on it, or bottom to top. So, the domain, you're going to put an arrow tip and an arrow tip. You could put negative infinity to positive infinity. Let's just write down all real numbers. And the range, likewise, will never ever stop going to the bottom, and it's going to keep going to the top, even though this has a small slope. So it will also be all real numbers, and it is a function. It is a linear function, isn't it? Oh, we're going to talk about how to graph that in the next unit. Let's keep going. This is so much fun. Okay, on this one we have arrow tips. So let's get these arrow tips. Okay, the domain is going to go from left to right, and that left arrow tip will never stop going left, will it? The right arrow tip will never stop going to the right. So the domain will be all real numbers, won't it? And the range will go start at the bottom. It's going to have an arrow tip in it. Now, let me do this in grade. It probably shows up better. Okay, so we're going to have an arrow tip here and then a closed dot here, won't we? So the range is going to go to negative infinity to, what is that, negative 2. And it's going to have less than or equal symbols and put a y. And it is a function. In Algebra 2, you'll learn that that's an absolute value function. Oh, let's keep going. Number 9 is a horizontal line in it. Okay, so from left to right, it will never end, will it? So the domain will be all real numbers. And the range is just going to be, put a dot, the range is just going to be y equal negative 3, won't it? And this is a function. Okay. Okay, number 10. Oh, number 10, let's go left to right again. It starts on the left right here. Notice it has an open and closed dot, but this closed dot will mean that it counts that value. So we are going to count that as a value. So we're going to have 2 closed dots because the open dot is going to become closed if we get the quarter pair. So the domain would be from negative 2 to 5, and it's going to have 2 less than equals, and then we're going to put an x. Oh. Now then, let's get the range. The range starts on the bottom right here, but it's going to be an open dot in it because there's not another dot left or right. Go up to positive 6. So the range goes from negative 6 to positive 6, has a less than symbol and a less than or equal. Put a y. This is not a function because a vertical line crosses it twice, will it? Oh. Continuing on. Okay. Drew believes this domain of the function is graphed negative 6 to positive 6, while Yasmin believes it is all real numbers. Technically, y'all listen, we're going to learn about this after Christmas. This line would just keep going down, even though it looks like it's straight. It would be all real numbers. So who is right? Yasmin is right. And guys, usually the lady's always right, okay? So Yasmin, it would be correct. It would be, the domain would be all real numbers. And then lastly, let's go over here. Sketch a graph that meets the following. The domain is all real numbers. That means we're going to go like this, right? We're going to have 2 arrow tips. And the range has to be greater than negative 2. Okay? So we could do this. We're going to have a curved line that goes like this. There's several ways to do this. Well, you have to have all real numbers. So you got to have an arrow tip on the left and an arrow tip on the right. You can also draw a V. Okay? That would also be the domain, all real numbers, but the range is going to be greater than negative 2. Okay. So summarize today's lesson. You write the domain from which way to which way. Domain is left to right. And the range is from bottom to top. arrow tip is going to turn into a infinity, and arrow tips on both sides will be all real numbers, right? So you learned about all real numbers today. That's when the arrow tips go both ways, and then if the arrow tip goes one way, it's going to go out to infinity, won't it? Okay? Hope you have a wonderful day today. Your homework will be next. It's going to be super duper easy. Enjoy the moment of Zen after this video. Let me stop recording to save time here. And then let me end this meeting so it can start going. Oh, okay. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for being a great audience. I can't see you, but I hope you are learning from the Jedi. Believe, remember, you are amazing. You were born to do wonderful things, and you are awesome.